Corinna Paige Slusser was an 18-year-old from Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania. She was a cheerleader who loved the beach. On September 20th, 2017, Corinna was at a hotel in Queens, New York City, exchanging messages with a man who was picking her up. She was never seen again. I'm Ed Densel, and this is Unfound. Back when I was a novel writer, I learned a valuable lesson. What was it? Clichés suck. They show your readers that you're really not using all your brain power to write the book that all of those people just purchased. And your readers will take note. And I think I've brought that kind of thinking over to the disappearance world with what you've heard over the past 9 years. I've questioned the dogma, we might call them cliches, on the quality of dogs, the ability of private investigators to solve cases, the belief that once searches are done, they don't need to be done again. And I can cite several other examples. Well, with the disappearance of Corinna Slusser, I get to take on another topic that has become a cliche. We all get to hear what it truly means to be trafficked. And now a summary of the case. Corinna Slusser was raised in the eastern hills of Pennsylvania. She had a small-town upbringing where everyone knew each other. She was a high school cheerleader and might have fit right in with the actresses in the movie Bring It On. However, something changed in late 2015 and into 2016. Corinna's friends changed. She changed, with Corinna eventually not attending her senior year of high school. She started smoking marijuana and also tried committing suicide. Corinna survived, but it was around this time she met a guy, Giovanni Pagero, who would become the primary man and nemesis in her life. He would take her to New York City, and she would not return. But during that time, there was abuse and criminal charges. So, on September 20th, 2017, Corinna was dropped off at a Queens hotel by another man, Ishi Woni. She had no money and not many options. In a moment of desperation, Corinna messaged Giovanni, despite her having an order of protection against him. They exchanged several messages, with the inference that Giovanni would pick her up, although to this day he has never admitted doing so. Those were the last messages ever written by Corinna. She was never seen again. Due to Corinna's lifestyle in New York City, no one in her family knew anything was wrong until 2 weeks later. More than any other true crime host, whether on TV or on the internet, I've made the point that although sex trafficking exists, it does not account for as many disappearances as people think, and it is greatly overblown by advocates who will do and say anything to get attention for their cause. Contemplate whether I am right about this point, as you also try to answer these 3 questions during the interview. Number 1, simply put, how can this happen to a girl growing up in an out-of-the-way place like Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania? Number 2, realistically, even if her family had known what Corinna was doing in New York City, could they have done anything to change the course of what happened? And number 3, what item in women's personalities do predators identify that makes turning them into sex trafficking victims possible? Corinna's family firmly believes Giovanni Pagero knows exactly what happened to her. The guest for this episode is Corinna's aunt, Julie. Unfound news. I'm liking what I'm seeing from the Unfound database that is almost done. I think you all are going to find it very interesting. And yes, I will do a tutorial video to make sure all of you know how to use it. Next, the newest Unfound Now and Found episodes are out. I go over the recent disappearance of Richard Cleaves and the 1950s disappearance of Lawrence Bader, respectively. Finally, it seems I may be on the A&E channel again. I'll be talking to one of their writers this coming Monday about runaways. I'm so happy to have on this episode of Unfound the aunt of Corinna Slusser, Julie. Julie, welcome to Unfound.
Hello, and thank you for having me.
You're very welcome, and everyone should know we are doing this interview on September 29th of 2025. Let's start here, Julie. Let's just talk about the Corinna's family. How many brothers and sisters she has? Does she have any half brothers, half sisters? What can you say about the family's whole? How big is this family, and describe it to the listeners?
So the family that Corinna had, that she was mainly affiliated with or surrounded by, her mother and her brother. Her brother's a few years older than her. And at the time, up until she was about 12 years old, she did have a father figure that was her mother's boyfriend that raised her as well. And she did spend quite a bit of time with her grandparents up until her grandmother passed away. I'm not sure what year that was. And her grandfather remained also in Bloomsburg in the area, and she was directly connected with her grandfather. So it was mainly her mother, her grandfather, the man that helped raise her, and Justin, her brother.
Justin, her brother. Okay. In Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania, which, as a Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania person, but I'm from the western PA, Bloomsburg in eastern Pennsylvania.
Very rural.
Very yeah, right.
Very rural. The cheerleader, she was a cheerleader. The name of their team is the Cornhuskers. Very rural. Not too much stuff to do. For instance, anytime that our family went over to Pennsylvania pretty often to go visit, we saw it as a vacation in the country.
That's funny.
Okay. Very nice. The area that she's in, I'm sure it has its issues and whatnot, just like any place.
Right.
But it's a much slower atmosphere, much more comfortable, easygoing atmosphere.
But I do know, just because of being from Pennsylvania, my dad still lives there, that Bloomsburg does have a university there. There is a school there.
It is, yes, and a very good one from what I understand. So yes, they do have a good college presence there.
Right.
I'm talking about the whole surrounding area in general. There just happens to be a university there.
Sure. Maybe we should ask you this, of course, being that you're being interviewed today. What about your connection to Corinna earlier in her life? Do you remember her being a little girl? What kind of relation? Of course, we're going to get talking about maybe she was going to come live with you before she went missing. But as a little girl, your kind of connection to her, and what brings back memories?
So I became part of the family when I was 19, so Justin was just a baby.
Mm-hmm.
I have been involved with Corinna's life since she was born. But I live in Massachusetts. My family lives in Massachusetts, so it's not. It was not a sense of that we saw each other on a very regular basis, but we stayed in contact by phone, all of that, and would see each other.
Okay.
That their family would come out to Massachusetts to visit us, and we would often go and stay there at her house. And she was just honestly the sweetest little girl. I remember her face is like an angel face. She was just very, very sweet. And when you hear people say, "Oh, somebody has an old soul," like based on their eyes, she was just so innocent, more like a new soul type of thing. Very, very innocent and very genuine and just very sweet. And that was what she was like always, up until the about year and a half prior to when she went missing. That was a steady course of what her personality was. She loved family. She loved friends. Loved being social and loved being around people.
You said she was a cheerleader, so having been in high school way back in the 1980s, cheerleaders are usually fairly popular. So I guess she was a popular young woman in her school, I guess.
I wouldn't put it necessarily down as that she was extremely popular, but more got along with everybody. And to my knowledge, anyway, I wasn't involved with the intricacies of her personal relationships when she was a teenager, as far as who was her best friend and whatnot. But she had the same group of friends with like-minded interests in sports and swimming parties and, all that type of stuff, prom, whatnot. When during that last year and a half is when her group of friends changed and she began to change too. But up until then, like as a kid, and as an adolescent too, she did track. She was into cheerleading, but more than that, I can say that she had a absolute fascination with being a girly girl. She absolutely loved makeup and was extremely talented at doing it. She did my makeup once and it was like flawless. And it's not just your standard teenager playing with makeup. Like she it definitely had some type of future in cosmetology or fashion, one of the two. She had a really, really good eye for fashion and always took care of herself. Her bedroom, it was all pink and flashy, everything, kind of like a diva. I remember going shopping with her. She had come out to Massachusetts to visit, and I took her shopping before she went back to school in Pennsylvania. And I remember sitting with all the fathers, like out in the middle of the court, like just waiting for the kids to come. And after 6 hours of shopping, she picked out one sweater.
Wow.
But she, she loved life and she loved her friends. I know that she also loved the ocean. She didn't have too much exposure to it, but she fell in love with Hawaii at one point. She had gone to Hawaii and fell in love with the idea of the ocean. And when she would come out to Massachusetts, the beach here is about 1 hour away, so we would always go to the beach every time that she came. As she she was going from an adolescent into a teenager, is really when Corinna and I became really, really close. And I remember, for instance, that they came out here and we specifically spent a day in Boston where we were looking at Boston College. And she, at that point, I believe she was just beginning her junior year, I want to say. And up until then, she actually had the grades that she could have gotten in. She was on that trajectory, and we were excited to be in Beantown, and she was excited to, be looking forward towards living in a city. She really always wanted that faster paced life.
Right.
So
I know the feeling. I know the feeling myself, sure. Growing up in the hills of Pennsylvania, kind of like Bloomsburg, like where I grew up, I know the feeling, sure.
Yeah, yes, and she just saw it as this, whole other life, and she only knew the glam of it and was completely naive to what a city really brings, as far as it brings good, but it also brings terrible things. And she definitely did not have the mindset to be in a city. I remember specifically, and this ties into when I found out she was in New York. I remember specifically that we were having a conversation where she wanted to come out and stay with me for a couple of weeks, and I was not able to drive because I had knee surgery, and this was it was a couple of years before she went missing. Okay. And we were having a conversation, and I was telling her that I could not drive out there and go pick her up, which is what I would usually do. And it's about a 6-hour, 7-hour drive for me. And said that I couldn't do that, but we could figure out a different way. And so we started looking into the local airports and that type of thing about what would it cost to fly over. And she came up with the idea of the fact that there is a Greyhound bus terminal that's there. And I remember it flat out saying to her, absolutely not would I ever let you take a Greyhound bus to Massachusetts because you have a connection in New York City. And I would never want you to get off of the bus in New York City. And I just remember that specific conversation, and that was actually why she didn't come on a trip. That was 1 year, was because of that conversation. And just very ironic that's where she ended up, and that's what ate her up.
Okay, let's move on to this, because you've mentioned it kind of a couple times already, that you said that her friends changed and then she changed. And understanding, of course, you're in Massachusetts, she's not your daughter, you're not in Pennsylvania, but your perception of that, when did you personally maybe notice that all these great things, of course, that you've already said about her, maybe something was changing? Because it's out there already in the public that she did drop out of high school before her senior year. So your perception of what happened.
So prior to her dropping out of school, and just prior to her dropping out of school, her and I, we had a very close relationship where she could tell me anything. When I say cool auntie, there were that I would not divulge to her mom, but they were not anything that were out of the ordinary for a teenage girl. Okay, I knew that she had gotten in trouble for stealing, for instance, and for I believe that she had been at an underage party and had to go to a police station because she had been drinking. Okay. And I do remember talking to her about that and confronting her about that, but also getting the background of, that she learned a lesson and that type of stuff. I was not going to come down hard on her like a parent has to.
Not your job, yeah.
So with that, she divulged things to me. For instance, I did know she was smoking pot. I was aware of that, and she had come to visit me the year prior to her going missing. She had come out to Massachusetts and stayed here for 3 weeks, I believe. And we had a wonderful time. I did know that she had smoked marijuana. And looking back, that is a huge red flag that I dropped. And mainly being that it is legal here in Massachusetts, and if you expect a teenager not to smoke marijuana, they're going to hide it from you. That's all that's going to happen. Looking back, I would now realize that should have been a red flag, because that's definitely not the case in Pennsylvania. Yeah. And that was definitely not the case where she was. Right. It was something that was unusual for her to be smoking pot. So I did know about that. After she had stayed with me, everything went wonderful. We had the best visit. I drove her home and dropped her off, and that was, I believe that was August. By December, Corinna had a very contentious relationship with her mom because her mom was trying to make her do the right things. When I say make her, like as in a parent.
Yeah.
And so there was constant fighting, and they both, it was a toxic situation between the two of them. Corinna and Sabina, it had gotten to the point where Sabina's landlord wanted Corinna to move out, and that was because of parties that she was having over the weekends when her mother wasn't home. And so it was basically evicting Corinna. So Corinna needed a place to go live. I agreed that she could come and move in permanently with me. And so this was all happening right around Christmas time of 16. And I was actually in Texas at the time, like when this was all unfolding. And so I had plans on being back a few days later. Corinna was going to go to Massachusetts, and I was going to meet her like when I flew back up here. My oldest son was an adult by then and was home on leave from the Marines, and just assumed that she could go there. And it was that I received a phone call from Massachusetts from my sons and their friends, letting me know that Corinna could not move in with us, and let me in on some things that had been happening while I was at work when she was here. And it was things that
you were surprised?
I was surprised, and also too, I did not believe. There was actually one accusation that I'm still not sure if it's true or not, but I was told.
All right, well, if you don't know it's true or not, let's not talk about it. Let's not get into that. But you heard something that really surprised you, and that kind of put the squash on. Her moving in.
I was concerned. I was very concerned that she was sexually active, and that she was going to end up getting pregnant. That was my concern, was 100% that if she comes here, and as a teenage mom myself of my oldest, I know how it happens, and I was not going to let her get pregnant on my watch. And that was, I let her know, let Corinna know that I had found out what she had been up to, and we got into kind of an argument because she was saying she had no place to go, and I was saying, well, you cannot come here. And I also had my grandson by that time, so there was I did not want all of that trauma coming into the house.
Nope, you certainly don't. Did you let me just jump in here for a second. So she doesn't, so her senior year, of course you're talking now about December of 2016, so well in what should have been her senior year, but she didn't go back to school for her senior year.
I want to say she went to part of it, and then she, what she was going to do was, when she moved here, and what we were looking into was that she was going to finish high school from home, from Northbridge High School in Massachusetts. Like, that's what we were looking into. However, that fell apart once I got that phone call from my sons letting me know that there were issues that I wasn't aware of.
Okay. Now, if I can ask you, just perception-wise, once again, for you, of course, you're a parent. You've just mentioned that you have children yourself. And, of course, she came up. She's there. She's looking you right in the face. And I guess lying to you about things she was doing when you weren't around. Any perception to it as a parent of what was going on here and how she took this turn for the worse from your point of view as her aunt and as a parent yourself?
She never lied to my face. It was more, what would you call that? The, like withholding information.
Didn't lie, but left out some of the truth.
Correct. Lie by omission.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah. So, she had never lied to my face. But when I told her, that she could not move in, her reaction to me let me know that she definitely could not move in, because I saw I saw a different side of her during that conversation, as if it just was not the Corinna that I knew.
How did you react? Were you afraid of this? Were you sad of this? Were you when you saw this other side? Knowing this beautiful little girl that you knew and everything? How did you react?
I was
sad,
at the time
disappointed.
I'm trying to look for the feeling more of how it like hands in the air of just not knowing what to do. There's not much I can do from Massachusetts.
Right.
And what I was seeing was a toxic situation between a mother and a daughter.
Yeah.
The yelling, the fighting, and all of that. It was not a good environment for Corinna, and it was not a good environment for her mom. But also, too, what probably needed to be done was somehow getting her away from her friends. In hindsight, the biggest mistake of my life is not letting her move in. If I could do it over again, I would take 1,000 babies over what is happening.
Right. What has gone on the last 8 years. Right.
Right. And
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So December, of course, you have this conversation. You see this other side of her. Of course, your son, who is a Marine, of course, very mature at that point, been to boot camp and all that stuff, is saying, you know what, Ma, I don't know about Corinna living here, and here's why. So did she have to go back to Pennsylvania, or what happened?
Oh, well, she was already in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
She was planning on, at the end of December, she was planning on moving to Massachusetts.
Okay.
To be in Texas when that whole arrangement initiated between the three of us, being Sabina, Corinna, and I. And I had agreed to it and had said that she could come here while I was not home because I was in Texas. And that was when the kids had said no, and I realized that I could not have her here unsupervised. At the time, I had a job that traveled. So I would have had to leave her here for sometimes a week at a time. So she would have been unsupervised under my care for that time.
Right.
I just, in my opinion, that especially teenagers, period, that you should never leave them home.
Yes.
That's all.
Yes. Right.
The best of kids are up to the worst of things, and we know that 10 years later.
Okay, let's move on to this. So we now move into 2017, and once again, she's not in Massachusetts. You're of course not seeing her every day. You're probably not talking to her every day. What is your understanding of what went on that first half of 2017 with Corinna?
Okay. So it was, Corinna was mad at me for not letting her move. That was January.
Sure.
That was also into February. I had an accident with my knee, same knee I had surgery on prior. And I ended up in the hospital for about a month and then recuperating for 4 months. And during that time, I did not have any contact with Corinna. The first time I had contact with Corinna was July, so I did not have contact with her between January and July. And
was anybody being like a pipeline to you, actually telling you, somebody you trust, of course, of what was going on in her life during that time, that you actually didn't have any one-on-one conversations? Were you getting like news about what she was doing?
I found out how much had been going on September 11th. That was that day where I had that last phone call with Corinna.
Yeah.
That day, spent that entire day on the phone with her mom, and that was the day that I found out that she had attempted suicide in April. I had never been told that, never been told she was in the hospital, anything like that. And I don't believe anybody else was, or it wasn't made to, why would you tell people that?
Right.
Type of a situation. But I was just never aware of that.
And how'd you react when you finally did it? Of course, you're in the hospital, you're taking care of your own needs. And once again, she's not your daughter. You have your own children. You have your own concerns, travel, job, and everything else. But when you found out September 11th, and we should be clarified, 2017, September 11th, how did you react to all of that? I'm guessing you were shocked or what?
I was in an absolute state of panic. That was the day that, like, panic. It was all of these little details and stuff that had, made you think once or twice when looking at our social media and that type of thing. It just, everything made sense. That was also the day that Sabina had received that order of protection in the mail just a few days before that. So that was the day that's like, it was right around there that we were made aware that Corinna was actually in physical danger and had been assaulted in August.
Okay, well, let's just leave it right there, because that then brings in these other people, and then we'll come back to late September 11th and get to a disappearance date.
I can tell you specifically what happened on September 11th.
No, well, we'll come back to that. But being that you've brought up these assaults and things, let's just talk about these guys, and then this will all be very clear to everybody. And now everybody should know these names are not out there. We're not revealing these names for the first time. We're not revealing any secret information.
Giovanni
Pagero. How did he and Corinna meet? When did they meet? How did they meet?
Nobody knows for sure.
Wow.
That is all speculation, but there is enough circumstantial evidence in the form of clothes and gifts that were given to her right after she got out of the hospital. And it is known that two family associates of Giovanni Pagero traveled back and forth between New York and Hazleton on a regular basis. The bottom line is that when those clothes and shoes, which were very expensive designer items, were showing up at her house, Corinna said they were from friends that she met in the hospital.
All right, so there's the idea, once again, a suspicion, maybe circumstantial evidence, no scientific evidence. This connection to this guy started when she had gone to the hospital after the suicide attempt?
Correct, because she had taken Tylenol and was acetaminophen, and she actually went into liver failure. They were contemplating, they were talking about a liver transplant at one point. So she was in the hospital for about a month recovering from that. She was in a special isolated room. At the end of her stay, they transferred her to for mental health evaluation because of the fact that she had attempted suicide. And I believe that she got out 2 days later, just convincing them that it was a very bad mistake and she wasn't going to make it again. So that was at the end of April. And in June, she moved out of her mom's house and moved in with friends in Hazleton. And that went bad, and I'm not quite sure what went bad. However, there was some type of an argument that took place. I'm not sure if she had been asked to leave. But whatever it was, that a gentleman that was with her that fits Giovanni's description said that she's moving to New York and she did not need any of her belongings, and she left all of her clothes, all of her makeup, and that is absolutely abnormal for her. It left everything behind, and this man said to her roommate, she doesn't need to worry about anything. I'll buy her all new stuff. And that is the last time that her friend saw her. That happened, and I want to say that was actually in July, and I can say that looking at you right now, I'm filtering through.
Please.
I can say that the day that we found out, when I say we, the day that everybody found out that she was in New York, it was a specific date, and it was mid-August. We can say that. Okay. So it was mid-August that a post pops up on her Facebook that she is in Manhattan.
Okay.
And
let me just break this down then, just to make sure I understand this, so everybody else understands this. She attempts suicide with Tylenol. Fortunately, she survives it, but when she's in the hospital, somehow she becomes connected to this Giovanni guy. And then after that, he starts, or somebody connected him, starts sending her stuff, like gifts.
Correct. Somebody was sending her expensive designer clothes and other gifts to her house. And when asked about where they were coming from, they were coming from somebody she met in the hospital.
Wow. And
then shortly thereafter, there's a man with her who tells her roommate she needs nothing where she's going because he's going to buy everything for her, and she's gone. And that's when she went to New York. Okay. We believe that man, based on his description, fits Giovanni's description.
All right. Very good.
Yes.
Okay. So moving on, I need to ask you about how about Ishi and Marcus? Connected to Giovanni, or are they different group? How would you talk about, once again, these names are out there, Ishi and Marcus? What can you say about them, being that we've already talked about Giovanni? We're going to come back to Giovanni. But what about Ishi and Marcus? When do they enter Corinna's life, as best as you can tell?
Okay, as best as we can tell, so Ishi Woni became involved with Corinna on September 10th. Is 2017, and it was after the assault from Giovanni. We do not think that Ishi Woni and Giovanni were connected, but we don't know that. Okay. But she, in between September 10th and September 20th, Ishi Woni and Corinna exchanged 806 messages.
Oh my goodness.
However, those messages end when he dropped her off at the Haven Hotel, and because of the fact that he did not want to market her anymore, because of the fact that his actual girlfriend had a problem with Corinna.
I suppose she did.
So on September 20th, and this is according to his text messages and also the recovered text messages from her, he left her at the hotel and paid for the room. It was not for the night, because the Haven Hotel only rents out rooms for 3-hour blocks. So he rented a room for her and left her there with no food and money. Okay. So that is the end of her relationship with Ishi, was the morning of September 20th.
But just to be clear, like you said, with Giovanni, it was from her seemingly being in the hospital. With Ishi, still not very clear how those two knew each other, Corinna and this guy.
Not sure how they came into contact with each other, but it very well could have been because it was the same circle.
Okay. And what about Marcus? So we're going to come back to the assault regarding Giovanni for everybody who's wondering about that. We're going to go back to that. But I just want to get these guys' names out of the way right now. What about Marcus? What about him?
Okay, so Marcus Wright is somebody who came up towards the end of the investigation regarding Giovanni and came out of nowhere. It was a sense of everyone asking, who is Marcus Wright? Like, what does he have to do with this? Who is that individual? And it turns out that Marcus Wright was arrested and charged alongside with Giovanni for advertising Corinna for promotion of prostitution. However, after that arrest and after that charge, there is no more mention of him whatsoever. So he never went to court, at least that we can see. There's no court records, but there are arrest records. So Marcus Wright was arrested and charged and then just completely drops off of the case.
Okay. Now, let's go back to Giovanni and this assault. I think that it happened in August, and then there was even like a protection order, something like that. Why don't you explain, once again, we realize you were not there, but what you found out about it, what you heard about it, was your understanding of what went on between Corinna and Giovanni in August.
Okay, so it was about mid-August that everybody found out that she was in New York by her Facebook. And the posts on her Facebook made it look like she was living like a very glamorous lifestyle, parties type of thing, just having a lot of fun. Apparently, it was in the third week of August, and I am going to say to you offhand, I don't have that date in front of me.
Okay.
It was at the Haven Motel, the same motel that she went missing from. Corinna was getting out of the shower, and she noticed that $300 was missing. Now, the fact that she was getting out of the shower at that motel and he was there and she was missing $300, it can lead you to your own conclusions. She confronted him about the missing money, and he assaulted her, choked her. She called 911, went to the hospital. At the hospital, when asked by the physicians what had happened, she actually told them that it was her daddy. Those were her words that she used. Huh. That her daddy had done this to her. And he was arrested 3 days later, and arrested for assault and arrested for obstructing her breathing way, like obstruction of a breathway.
Okay.
And so then a restraining order was issued that was a 6-month restraining order. And he was released on $1,000 bail, maybe 2 days after his arrest. And I need to mention that this occurred while he was on federal parole for assault and endangering for endangering a minor. Wow. They arrested him, and he made bail. So that was, and the restraining order was in place. Then, following that is September, and that is when Ishiwoni surfaces to the picture. Then that leads up until September 20th. We don't even know that he ever answered to a violation of probation charge for that. The date to answer for that charge against Corinna was going to lead him to be incarcerated for a very long time, mandatory.
Okay.
And I believe that court date was on November 4th. And he was there, and she did not show up, and they dismissed the case.
Wow. She went missing before that could happen.
Exactly. She was missing on September 20th, so she did not show up in court, and they dismissed the charge. And her investigation was up and going, but he was out walking around. Okay. In the very beginning of the investigation, we had a group named Phantom Rescue that got involved, and
we're going to get to that. Let's we'll come back to that. That's totally fine. I'm going to ask you some questions about after he was taken away. What is your understanding about the connection? Of course, he was supposed to stay away from her, I guess, after this assault. What is your understanding about what Corinna was doing after he was taken away, and that time frame between like August, whatever it was? I have it in my notes, August 25th, but and then September, like you said about Ishi, around September 10th. What was she doing, being that Yvonne wasn't around, as best as you can tell?
We don't know, because we did not find out about the assault until, like, for instance, I didn't find out about the assault until September 11th. Right. The one phone call that I had with her was just maybe 7 minutes in duration. And I had a chance to ask her a couple of questions that were pointed to, I know what is going on, but I had no idea how bad it was. That conversation got cut short because of the fact that I believe that somebody was there with her at the end of the conversation. So the answering to somebody assaulting her, I can only say what she had said to me. And when I had said that I know somebody hurt you, and she said to me, "Oh yeah, well, he's in jail now and he's not going to do it again." And that was what she said to me, but he had already been released. So I'm not sure if she was even aware that he had been released. It was Corinna who broke the restraining order.
Right.
Right. Contact.
Right, and we're going to get to that. But overall, your insight, of course, her mother's insight, anybody else's insight, her family's insight, What exactly did you all think she was doing in New York City for money and everything? I mean, I think we now know what she was doing, but what at the time did everybody think she was doing there?
I personally thought worst case, and so, was that she was dinner dating, which is a thing. And that is, eye candy on somebody's arm, but no sexual contact unless that person wants it to happen. Still not okay. It's still not acceptable. Right. But in no way to the level of depravity that we now know about. Mm-hmm. So at most, when I look at my niece and I see her picture and I see how absolutely stunning, beautiful she is, I can imagine that there are plenty of men who would love her company even at a symphony for 3 hours.
Right.
And I think that most people know that even if that is how it starts, where it's going to go, that it's only going to go in one direction. However, I do not think that Corinna was too naive to know that. The typical teenage belief of this won't happen to me. Corinna lived a very, very sheltered life. She had no idea that this other life existed.
Yeah. Bloomsburg. It was Bloomsburg.
Correct. She was correct. She was never exposed to the actual evils in life.
Okay. All right, so this is all going on. She's telling you that he's going away and he's not going to do that again. But as you stated, by that time, he was actually already out of jail. But like you also said, who knows if she knew that or not. And of course, around this time is when Ishi became, came into her life as well. Somehow that we're unclear about that. And then this is, as you've already brought up, September 11th is when everybody found out about all this.
Right. Well, when I say that I found out about it, I can't speak for any other conclusions that other people came to. That was the day that I figured that she was doing dinner dates, and that in my mind was absolute horror. So that's what I thought she was doing. And I believe that's pretty much what everyone thought, which was still a bad thing. It was still something that was not safe.
Okay. All right. So we have this going on, and once again September 11th, but the accepted disappearance date right now is September 20th. So what went on in that week after that, as best as you can tell, up until the point, we'll get to this point of this texting and Ishi and all of that. What can you say?
Okay, so starting with September 11th.
Yeah.
The reason that I was on the phone with Corinna's mom was because Corinna's grandfather was dying. A COPD, I believe, related. He was in Florida. And so we were on the phone and just having kind of a sad conversation. And that was also when she was talking about she had gotten the protection order and us trying to figure out what that meant. She had called and spoken with somebody at the NYPD about it. But I'm not sure what conversations she had with Corinna about the protection order. But that was on September 11th. On September 14th, her grandfather died. And the funeral was set for September 26th. It was actually on September 20th that Sabina had a conversation with Corinna, and Corinna told her that she wanted to come home, that New York was not what she thought it was, and she was coming home the next day. And Sabina then told her that her grandfather died, and that she needed to go to Florida for the funeral, and that she was herself leaving for the funeral that following Sunday, and expected her to be in Florida. And at that time, during that conversation, Corinna told her mother that her ID, all of her IDs had been stolen. I believe that's what the word that she used was stolen, not just that she lost them.
Okay.
And that was it. And then, so she said, instead of going to Florida, she was going home the next day to Pennsylvania. And that was on September 20th, that in the afternoon that she had that phone call. Okay. And then following that phone call on September 20th, she begins having a phone call conversation with somebody by the name of Trayvon Martin. And the conversation between her and Trayvon Martin is that she's asking him to pick her up. And what we find out later is that Trayvon Martin is Giovanni Piguero. That is an alias.
I was going to say Trayvon Martin was the guy that got killed down here in Florida, right? Right?
Right.
He stole the name of that from over there. That incident where he was walking through the neighborhood and the guy started following him and they got into a fight over a gun. I think that's Trayvon Martin, right? I'm going to have to edit that out if I'm wrong about that. But
Revon Martin, yeah.
Right.
But it's Giovanni's picture, and it's from his phone, and it's just one of his many aliases. Also, the spelling of his name is really difficult. There's multiple spellings of his name out there. Even some of the court documents have his name misspelled. So one of his aliases that was Trayvon Martin was what he was using to communicate with Corinna over Facebook.
Okay.
So, and in those messages, and they start at 7:00 at night, that she begins begging him to pick her up.
All right, so let's not get too deep in this because we'll go over this in the phone record section. Because obviously you have extensive, you, her family, her mother, whoever included, have gotten extensive phone records, text messages, etc. regarding all of this. Correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All right, so we'll come back to this in a bit. All right, so she tells her mother, you know what, New York City isn't the Big Apple. I couldn't make it here, so I'm going back to Bloomsburg. Of course, she doesn't end up back in Bloomsburg. What is the first red flag that, something's not right here, as best as you can tell, being her aunt?
It was on her birthday. It was on October 5th.
Wow. 2 weeks later, oh my.
Was October 5th that I put up a message on her Facebook wishing her a happy birthday, and I got a very frantic phone call from her mom explaining that Corinna was missing.
Oh my goodness. And at that point, once again, we're not here to be critical or anything, but you were just found out then, but in your perception, how long had they realized, her mother, whoever else, how long had they realized that she was missing, had been missing?
To be honest, I don't think the date of September 20th had come up yet. It was just that she was missing, and that Sabina had not heard from her since the 20th, and trying to get in touch with all of her friends, and at that point, and that was in the beginning of October. Of have you seen her?
Okay, all right.
Have you seen her? Because she's not answering her mother.
Okay, so you wish her a happy birthday. Her birthday is October 5th, which of course is coming up in about a week from now. And so you and her mother have this conversation, and you're like, oh my gosh, she's missing, and you haven't heard from her from September 20th. What happens all after that?
Chaos. It was just absolute chaos. I can't describe the amount of panic, and I'm an aunt, but the ironclad hit of reality that is so scary.
Yep.
And having absolutely no control over knowing anything. I can still remember where I was sitting, and I still remember the conversation of who do we call, what do we do, and having the police department. It was through Montour Township. They could only help to a certain limit because that's not where she went missing from.
Yeah.
And it was just So her birthday was the turning point for me, at least, and everything from that day on was just a nightmare.
And so what we're saying is you found out she was missing on her birthday.
Correct.
Oh, my goodness.
Correct.
At that point, once again, the way you remember it, had a missing persons report already been filed by her mother or by somebody else? Or was that still in the process of being done? What was the status when you found out October 5th?
October 2nd, that her mom had gone to the Montour County, that's Bloomsburg, their department. Okay. And they did get in touch with the NYPD and whatnot, but they could not take the missing persons case. So that was on October 2nd. Okay. Then I do not know when the official missing persons report was filed in New York, but it was within a couple of days. Like it was, as soon as Montour Township said that they could not take the report, maybe the next day that her mom went to New York City and ran into the fact that no precinct would take the missing persons report.
Talk a little bit more. Once again, you're not doing this. Her mother. Any perception why that was? What was the reason for this? Do you think?
Lack of interest. It's one more missing girl, like not important. It was. We know now that that's exactly what it was. Right. One more number, one more statistic, one more girl who went vanished, and there is not enough manpower to give a crap. And it is only through forcing them through multiple phone calls, not giving up, of demanding some kind of action that actually got them started. They were not looking for her in the beginning.
Did of course her mother was the one who went to New York City. Did she even have an address to start? We've talked about this hotel. We're going to come back to that. But did she even have it? Could she even go to an address and knock on the door? Even something like that. Did she even have that?
The police did. So because of the fact that she had the protection order, and so that was a place to start.
Okay, very good. Okay.
So the police, her and a friend of hers sat there for hours in the precinct, and waited for them to come back. Basically like thinking that they were going to get her, and came back and just were told, hey, we spoke with him and he doesn't know anything. And that was it. Okay. And missing report filed, but no actual action taken besides that visit. I do know that during the investigation, investigators did go and talk to his family and that type of thing, but it was definitely not done in the beginning. And it was not.
And when you say his family, whose family?
Giovanni.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, we're going to come back to him. Okay. All right, so we have the situation. She says she's going back to Bloomsburg. She didn't end up there. Seemingly her mother, maybe it was somebody else, but most prominently her mother recognizes something's not right. October 2nd, October 5th. You wish Corinna a happy birthday, not knowing what was going on. I don't know if they had a responsibility to tell you or not, but you find out, you have a conversation with her mother. All this gets the ball rolling. NYPD kind of blows everything off. No surprise there, but they do have this address of this protection order that Corinna had against Giovanni. And that's kind of where the rest of this all begins, trying to dissect all of this. And, of course, we're going to get into these phone records and everything else. But I will ask you, when was the first time that the words sex trafficking popped up in all of this? What?
From authorities?
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. When did they first mention it? What did you think of it? What did her mother think of it? What was the whole attitude toward that?
Well, when Montour County had contacted the NYPD and on October 5th, October 2nd. October 2nd.
Okay.
When Montour County contacted the NYPD and told them, that Corinna was missing and that she was somehow associated with this Giovanni Piguero, it was the NYPD that let Montour County know, or Montour Township know, that based on his previous charges, based on his history and based on his reputation, that they had reason to believe that she was being held against her will and being trafficked. So that came from Montour Township on October 2nd.
So that wasn't even from the New York City police. That was just from your local police telling your family that.
Telling our family, and correct, and putting it in a report. It's in the report that she attempted to file that they couldn't take.
Oh my! So it wasn't even the NYPD that brought that up. That's interesting. Okay, so now that's on the table. Putting everything together. When was the first time you heard about that? And was it something that you had even considered at that point, or was it like when it was said, it was like, "Yep, that makes sense now"? What about your personal reaction to it?
I personally felt that as soon as I was told that she was missing and had never gotten home, it was honestly my absolute worst fears were right there, and that was that we made a huge misjudgment in the dinner date situation. And I literally, it to me felt like an impact moment where this became a Lifetime movie that doesn't happen.
Yeah. Right. Okay. And of course, in the process, you found out you already knew about this assault from August and everything else. It's all it's kind of all coming together.
Correct. I think that because of that assault and knowing that there was a court date that was pending that had huge ramifications, in my mind, that was the first conclusion that I went to, was right there. Okay. And that was just me. But it also, too, though, in the beginning, and anybody who has a missing person, I'm sure, can say this, that you do not know what to do.
Right.
And you're listening to different people telling you to do different things. Do you go to the media? Do you not go to the media? If you go to the media, they're going to try to get rid of her, and that means anything that you can possibly think of. If you don't go to the media, nobody's going to find her. It is a catch-22. So in the beginning, when we decided to go to the media, right off the bat, with the ABC story, that was when everything it blew up action-wise, and that was that they were fearing that she was being moved outside the city because of the media.
The attention.
So, that was basically a reality that we had to accept, is that by going to the media that we could very well lose her right off the bat. Okay.
Let's move on to this. This hotel, we can name it. Where was this? Where she was supposed to be that night? We're going to get to these phone records in here very shortly. But regarding this hotel, which hotel is it? And is it your understanding that this is that kind of place? Or was this unique for her to be there, to be sex trafficked there? Or did this place have a reputation maybe for being involved in prostitution and things connected to that?
So it's named the Haven Motel in Queens, and it is a well-known prostitution location. The rooms are rented only by 3-hour blocks. The windows are completely blacked out from the outside. You can see the type of place it is just from looking it up on Google, Google Earth or Google Maps, and seeing it. Regarding the hotel itself, it is known as a very trashy establishment, and just drugs and prostitution constantly. she went missing on September 20th, and they do have cameras. However, they weren't working. And looking into it further, they're usually not working. And this is a case for a lot of hotels like that, and that is because they're protecting the pimps that are renting their rooms. And go in and rent out blocks of rooms, and that's how they stay in business. So there's no camera footage of her leaving on the 20th, but that's also the same motel that she was assaulted in August.
Okay. What about video from the surrounding establishments? Any more reputable places that might have video out on the street that were checked or could have seen her leaving, maybe getting into a car, something like that? Were video ever checked for any of those places, or was it too late by the time this was all realized?
So I can only speculate because if they did pull any footage from any cameras, it's in her investigation records, which they won't release. So we do not know that any footage was ever seen. It was that an individual, reported seeing her that last time, and we don't know who that person is. Somebody reported seeing her the morning of September 20th, and that is also the same day that she falls off from everything, was on September 20th. So that was the last time she was spotted. And that is the same hotel that Ishiwoni left her in and rented for her for that 3-hour block.
Okay. So maybe we need to go, all right, so we have this no video information for obvious reasons. But regarding being that you brought up Ishi, so he did eventually admit that he dropped her off there? That, what
yes,
did you have to say about all this?
He did plead guilty. He was caught during the investigation. How he got caught was not because they were looking for Corinna. How he got caught was because he had advertised Corinna and another girl, which turned out to be his girlfriend. And he assaulted her. He got arrested on an assault charge and a drug charge. When they were going through his phone, subpoenaed his phone records, that is when Corinna came up. And during his investigation into what happened that was separate from Corinna is when they stumbled upon Corinna and also stumbled upon other women, and ended up with his 15-year sentence because of that. But from what we know is that the relationship between them started on September 10th, and it lasted until September 20th, and that he left her at the hotel. And that is even from her own words when we can get into the phone records later, but she talks about that in her records.
How about we do that right now? You obviously have already displayed in this interview extensive knowledge regarding conversations she had with multiple people. Regarding texts, you even said, I think with this, it was like 800 texts, or maybe it was Giovanni, I forget which, but a huge amount of texts back and forth over several days and everything. How did you get these records? When did you, and I guess her mother and other family members, get these records? How did you get them, and how were you able to kind of figure out who was who within all of this?
Well, I know that a lot was gotten because of her mother was able to get her Facebook account. So all the messages that were in her Facebook that she had, everyone had, when I say everyone, her mom had access to after she was able to recover her account. As far as actual phone conversations, the police will not tell us if they ever subpoenaed her records. We had asked them to, of course, that seems to be something that would be absolute common sense in a missing persons case. If they did subpoena them, they never shared them with us. The records that we do have came from Facebook, and the Trayvon Martin is one of the people that she was talking to through Facebook. We know that there's much, much more, but what we have from the Trayvon Martin, who turned out to be an alias of Giovanni Peguera,
right.
Those messages on September 20th is where everybody should be focused on, and the NYPD should be focused on, and the FBI should be focused on, is what those messages were.
What were they? Would they say between Giovanni posing as Trayvon Martin and Corinna? What did those messages say, being that you got to see them?
Okay, so they start on September 20th at 8:40. And, okay, here we go. Okay. So it starts on, it's on September 20th at 7:07, that Corinna makes an outgoing phone call, to Trayvon Martin, who we now know is Giovanni Figuera.
Okay.
Says in those messages, and it says, "I'm sorry. Next one, please. Next one. I'm scared. Just come. I'm sorry. I'm scared. I'm just scared to come to you because of everything. Next one, even though I shouldn't, because they're all the same." And then the next one, "I never said love. I just need someone to help me out right now." And he responds, "I'm at my program now, but I'll call you when we're done. I don't want to get in trouble." And she laughs at that. And she says, "How long, please?" And that's it. That's all I need to know. He says 1 hour. And then he says this: "Now, are you ready to listen to everything I say with a problem? I need to know this because you are going to use me like you did last time. I have the money you left with another dude, so let me know. I gave you the money last you left with my boy. I need to know that you're not playing games again."
Mm-hmm.
And then he said, "Let me know so that I can come get you."
Okay.
Corinna responds at 9:52 and says, "If you missed me, you wouldn't say, first thing, is she going to work for me? You'd worry about my well-being and you'd get me without stipulation. You only care about money, not me." And he replies at 10:09, "Corinna, what are we doing? Did you text me to argue or for us to get up and chill?"
Right.
And she says, "You used me." And he said, "No, we ain't doing that again. I got the same program from before. And by the way, I'm ready for you. Text me your address, beautiful, because I miss you." And then there is a 4-minute missed video chat. Sorry, not a missed video chat.
Mm-hmm.
He tried to call her and it was a missed.
Okay.
And then he texts her again, says, "Let me know so that I can come get you." And that's it.
Okay.
And then
So and this is some. I'm sorry. Please continue. I'm sorry. Please continue, Julie. I'm sorry. Please continue.
The very last one is a 4-minute transaction between Corinna and Giovanni over Messenger. So we don't know what took place in that 4 minutes, but that is the final Facebook, at least, message that Corinna had the night of September 20th.
Okay.
Was that he was coming to get her.
All right. And you did say something earlier, I don't know how long, maybe 20 minutes ago or something in this conversation about how she had a restraining order against him, but it's clear from these messages that she's the one that broke it.
Correct.
Okay.
And what had happened was that she contacted Giovanni and told him that a guy, and I actually have this written down. She said, "Please come get me. If not, I could be locked up tonight. I think this P just did some foul shit. He left me in a short stay that's going to be up soon with no money and no food."
Okay. So she's talking about Ishi right there, right? She's talking about...
So she is telling Giovanni that Ishi left her at the hotel with no food.
Gotcha.
Needs help. Needs him to come pick her up.
Okay. So she's desperate. She probably knows, Ishi's not going to come back and help her out. That's why he put her there in the first place. And so she goes against this restraining order. and breaks down and contacts Giovanni, who sounds like he was otherwise engaged at that moment with his program, whatever that means. And then he said that seemingly he would come get her before those 3 hours were up.
That was correct. And also, too, there was in with the messages that say, answer, please, I'm sorry, please, and it goes on. It's like the fourth or fifth line in that she says, I'm scared to come to you because of everything. I'm sorry. Right. And begs him again, please let me come. And, that goes into, if not, she could be locked up and she's at a hotel stranded. Okay. And he lets her know what's what. And it's clear from those messages that she was anticipating him picking her up from the hotel.
Okay. So what has, now that we know all of that, but what did she have to say about all this? Now, he is quoted, this is just an example. If you go to the Charley Project, he has been asked about Corinna's disappearance, and he claims to know nothing. Has your family ever talked to him one-on-one? Has he ever offered up any opinion as to what he thinks? Has he ever pointed the finger at Giovanni? What is it she had to say about all this?
Not much. I know that her mom had gone to, every hearing that she could, that type of thing. And she actually confronted him during his sentencing, like blurted out in court. His response back to her, he did respond back to her. I believe she asked, I need to know, is my daughter alive? He said, I pray that she is. Only from where I stand, I take that as a genuine statement because of the fact that we really do believe he left her at the hotel. He dropped her off because she was too much of a problem for him. That's where that ends. So he took her on for about 10 days. As far as 804 messages, that is an insane amount of messages in a 10-day period of time. Can you brainwashing? And the only reason we know about those messages is because of the investigation into Ishii regarding the other charge. The charges stemming from his girlfriend's assault. And then they just happened to come across Corinna when investigating that. With Ishiwoni, the guy is an absolute dirtbag, and he belongs. It belongs exactly where he is. I know that he tried to use mental health as an excuse to get a more lenient sentence, and that did not fly. One of the women that he trafficked was in her mid-30s with the intellectual capacity of a 7-year-old, and taking that woman across state lines lets you know that level of type of person you're dealing with. However, and he definitely abused Corinna in the sense of prostituting her, but his part in the story ends when he drops her off at the hotel.
Okay. Right, you have with all the information you have about all the people that she spoke to that night, there's no proof that those two spoke after he dropped her off. It was all between her and Giovanni.
That is correct.
Okay. What about other...
There is one more thing to bring up.
Please,
and
go
that
ahead.
is at 5:04 in the morning on September 20th. She left a voicemail for one of her friends in Pennsylvania, and it does not make any sense. It says something to the effect of, hey, I heard that so-and-so was cheating on you for 2 months, and you need to tell me why, and I need to know that you're okay, so please call me back. It was not... It was a call that was completely out of the blue. It was 5:04 in the morning, and her voice sounds terrified. As in, that's probably not the reason she called her friend.
Right. What about other women? We know that guys that do this usually have more than one woman who is being forced to do these things that these women are forced to do. Have you run across in the last almost 8 years, a little over 8 years actually now, any other women who knew Corinna were able to be helpful, running around in those circles, maybe were able to escape what these guys were making them do? Any women like that who have been helpful?
No, not at all. The only one that we came across is the one that was also identifying as Ishivani's girlfriend. Mm-hmm. And one that we know about victims is any type of trafficking victim, the amount of brainwashing that goes on, it is comparable to Stockholm Syndrome. Yeah. And after he was arrested and the court case was pending, the same woman was standing up for him very much and trying to let people know that he was not a pimp and he did not traffic people. There wasn't very much information that she was willing or able to give us because of the fact that she was protecting him.
Don't say her name here, but do you know her real name?
No, I know her alias.
You know her alias. Okay, so we don't know.
Right.
We don't know what she's done with her life since 2017. Maybe she's dead. Maybe she's been murdered. Maybe she's changed her life. Maybe she's missing. We don't know.
No, her name in his court records are public, and her name has been redacted. And she is known, I believe it's as victim number 2 throughout it. But no, there's been no updates to her whereabouts or how she's doing. One thing, here it is in 2025 and 8 years has passed. One thing that has become relevant to us is that there is a high chance that there are women in the boroughs that may have been victimized by the same people, right. Who could not come forward before, who would be willing to come forward now, or who were victimized, especially since Giovanni went walking free for 3 years before he was sentenced. During that time, these people do not just traffic one person.
No. Gotcha.
So
right, that's why I'm asking. That's why I was asking if there are any other women's names that popped up.
Yeah, we are hopeful that after 8 years have passed, that people have had time to perhaps think about things and perhaps might now be in a better spot to be able to help out. We know that somebody knows something, and we know how close we are to the actual truth. And we're right there. This is very, very frustrating that we have a hard stop right here.
What is Giovanni? Of course, he's in jail now. As of this time, is he still in jail? Is he out walking the streets again, or what's Giovanni doing now?
No. Giovanni Piguero was released very early, without notifying the public, without notifying the family. He was let out in August of 23 when he was not even scheduled for a parole hearing until July of 24. He was granted parole and he was released, and he is out walking around. He is not a sexual, does not have to report as a sexual offender. After he had gotten out, he racked up more charges. Even while the investigation was going on and he was awaiting sentencing for advertising her, COVID was happening. So because of COVID, he would go hearing to hearing to hearing, and they would just continue. And they deemed him as nonviolent every single time. And just let him walk the streets. During that time, it was, I believe, in 2021, that he was arrested for selling crack at Times Square. And they actually put him away a little bit for that. But he got back out. And it was at one of the hearings that her mom had attended, like taking so much time out of work to go to these hearings to be told in 30 seconds the case is continued every single time. Yeah. One of those times, her mom actually had her cell phone on and recorded she had to come face to face with him every time. And she was face to face with him and hit record and recorded a conversation with him, and where he told her to her face that I met a beautiful Caucasian. I'm not dumb. I'm going to upgrade this girl. Like, said that to her mom. And said I took her straight shopping and I bought her wild clothes, and then tells her mother, I believe that she's living life. So he says something about her. She's out exploring in New York. That's where she is. She's going to come back to you. He says that to her in the courthouse. Very pompous. And also goosebump level that I met a beautiful Caucasian. I'm not dumb. I said, I'm going to upgrade this girl. And I took her straight shopping and I brought her wild clothes. And yeah. And
since he wants to talk about her so much, has he ever mentioned what's he say about that night, being that she was texting with him? What's he say about that night?
That revelation did not come until later, when her mom had actually gotten access to her Facebook.
Yeah.
So we didn't know that for a very long time. Okay. Like that, it was a couple of years into it that we found that out. But we can only come to the conclusion that the authorities knew it. They had already subpoenaed other phone records from Giovanni and from Ishi and that type of thing. So we think they knew. However, so the phone conversation on the 20th, nobody has ever directly talked to him about. Sabina didn't have a chance to ask him about that. But what he does talk about in that same recorded conversation, he felt the need to tell Sabina that the night that Corinna called 911, that she was lying on him, and that was his words. She was straight lying on me, and it tells Sabina that Sabina says, she had marks on her. She went to the hospital, and he says that she completely made it up. So he felt the need to tell her that.
All right. Of course. So he's never been actually straight up asked about, well, you're on here saying that you're going to pick her up that night, then what happened? So he's never owned up to that.
No, he hasn't. And the NYPD and the FBI will not speak to those messages. Yeah. So they just will not say a word about them.
Okay. Is there any proof that Giovanni is continuing to do this kind of stuff here in 2025? Have you kept tabs on him, or has anybody else kept tabs on him during this time?
No, to be honest with you, when we found out that he was released, we didn't even find out from the United States. It was a group in Australia that has been following her case that notified another group that he's out walking around, and we didn't. It's very up to today's date. If you are to look him up, it appears that he is in prison. So, correct, he is not in prison, and we have all the affidavits that the documents that he was released and that he was arrested again, like a year after he was released, and did a few months here and there, drugs charges and that type of thing. As far as trafficking, none that we're aware of, but who knows? His criminal record stretches farther than from here to Alaska. And there's not much that he's not capable of.
Okay. Now, I think what's interesting to me when we first started talking is going into this, my perception was that, Ishi was the person who is most likely responsible. But now, of course, everybody hearing this, you tend to believe that Giovanni is the person who is most likely responsible, or at least at the very least knows what happened to Corinna and everything else. Can you speak to that a little bit? Because, it does seem what public perception is in contrast to what, your family thinks are two different things.
Well, and it seems that as soon as Ishiwoni was arrested, it was within hours that the Dr. Phil show wanted to have Sabina on. And everything in the media kind of exploded because of that one arrest. And we did go on the show, and we weren't really able to talk about what we wanted to talk about. The show was aimed at Ishiwoni and his involvement and that type of thing, when we were still saying, hey, we're looking at this guy. We did not know at that time that he had just left her at the hotel. That came out way later.
Okay.
But we were still saying, what about him? But for a long time, it seemed as if the NYPD and the FBI expected us to stop at Ishiwoni. And I expected the public to stop at Ishiwoni. That seems to be where the media dropped off. And that is also, after that, is when it comes up that Giovanni Piguero and Marcus Wright had been arrested for trafficking her. Came out after Ishiwoni's arrest. Okay. And that was just not made to be a big deal whatsoever. It seemed to fly completely under the radar, and Ishiwoni was getting all of the credit for her disappearance. And it's obvious that that's not what happened because of those messages that, and also his testimony and his court records. But it just seems from the public and the media that everything stopped right there. And that seems to be also, too, when we stopped getting return phone calls from the DA, from the FBI, from NYPD, just the contact ceased. As of now, in 2025, they still have her listed as an active investigation. Right. However, there's not even an investigator assigned to her. Nobody is looking. Nobody is looking for her. And all of the investigation records on Giovanni Piguero having to do with Corinna's disappearance have been sealed by the government. We cannot get those records. So we were told that after his sentencing. So he was sentenced and released early, way early. And his part into anything that happened to Corinna completely sealed. He never answered to any charges of transporting her for the use of prostitution. Never answered to any charges for anything that he actually did during the time that he was trafficking her. The only thing that he answered to was putting her on the internet. That was it.
And I was just going to ask you that. What have you learned about Giovanni's modus operandi? Because like we've already stated, probably she was not the only woman that he was controlling and forcing to do things for money and everything. Have you learned what his modus operandi? Of course, we've talked about this hotel in Queens. Well, was that his area? Or, if we do think that he picked her up and let's just say he didn't do anything violent to her, what was, the way this all worked? Can you even get an idea?
Well, now that 8 years has passed, and I on a personal level, I am absolutely furious with the fact that somebody was able to change her as fast as they did in a matter of months. Yeah. The fact that he has family members that traveled back and forth to her area in Pennsylvania, that all is a 1 and 1 makes 2. He's a monster. Right,
because we have to remember something. She was in a hospital in Bloomsburg, right?
Well, it was Geisinger's Hospital. I believe that that's a little outside of Bloomsburg. But yes, that same area.
Okay, so what we're trying to establish here is she was not in a hospital in New York City and came across somebody connected. I mean, she was out in the hills of Pennsylvania, and still somebody was able to say, hey, we should do this to her.
Well, that very well could be the situation, and that seems to be deeply. And the thing that we have found out about human trafficking in general is that when these predators are looking for their prey, one of the most sought after locations are hospitals, meaning that is where a lot of victims meet their pimps. Or if it's not their pimps, that they are befriended by other females who do have a pimp. And that would speak to them identifying the type of individual that they would go after that would be easy prey. Somebody who is in the middle of a mental health crisis, who seems to be alienated from her family, who seems very manipulated. Seems very able to be manipulated. The fact that everyone has her down as innocent and naive as she was, she came across that to anybody that met her. So a predator would very, very easily be able to see that.
So who do you think it was at the hospital? It surely was not Giovanni, who was in the hospital there, who was in there, I don't know, broken leg or whatever else. He surely was not the one in this hospital that ran across her. Have you no idea who it was? Could it have been a nurse? I mean, really, I'm serious. Could it have been a nurse or somebody that was on the inside?
I can tell you that in the beginning, I would have said I had no idea, but after coming in contact with other families of missing people or stories about trafficked victims and how it all started, it really opened up my mind to the reality that it literally can be anybody. It could, from the doctors down to the janitorial staff, the dietitians, it could be anybody. And that's if she actually met him at the hospital. But the time frame matches up between her getting out of the hospital and all of a sudden receiving these gifts at her doorstep, and then telling her mother, I met friends in the hospital.
Wow, that is something. You would hope that somebody at the hospital wouldn't be doing that, but you never know. That is something. I guess the difference is that we some years ago we featured the disappearance of Chelsea Koba, who I think was involved in very much the same thing in New York City. She went to a hospital and then she was getting whisked away by some guy never to be seen again. But it seems with her that she had already had kind of something set up before she even went to the hospital. It doesn't seem that way with Corinna. Of course, once again, Chelsea was in New York City, and Corinna was not. So,
well, there is the point though that she could have come into contact with him prior to that because of the fact that she was hosting parties at her house, and there was definitely things going on during those parties. We don't know who she came in contact with then. So she could have, when she started making these new friends, that very well could be how she came in contact with him too. I think that if she had come into contact with him prior to that, probably used the hospital to get even closer to her, meaning visiting her in the hospital.
Okay, gotcha. Now, I do need to give you an opportunity to talk about this shadow group. I forget what their actually proper name. It has shadow in the title. How did they get involved in this, and what did they do?
So it was a group named Phantom Rescue.
Phantom Rescue. I'm sorry, Phantom. I apologize. Phantom Rescue. Please continue.
Yep. Sure. Phantom Rescue is a group of retired Navy SEALs that runs out of Norfolk, Virginia. And they are a group that finds missing persons, typically internationally, and it has to do with our laws in our country that they have an issue with. For instance, having to notify the police department that they're going to go to a certain house, having to work in coordination where they do not have to do that internationally. And they typically go and find people who had been kidnapped for ransom, kidnapping victims. When Corinna went missing, my family, my parents and sisters are located in Virginia. This group, Phantom Rescue, a bunch of their members, they go to the same church that my family does. And so it was just an opportunity of this group is willing to help you. And that was right off the bat. That was within a day or two of her birthday. And it was only a matter of a day before we were hit with the information of the fact that this was very, very, very serious. They had uncovered her on what was the dark web. Even though people say that it does not exist, it definitely does. I've seen it myself. And things like Backpage, all of that, they found her right away being advertised. They got in contact with the NYPD investigators, and they were in contact with the NYPD, sharing the information that they were recovering. And I'm sure that we were not told all of the information and what was happening between the Phantom Rescue and the NYPD, but we were let in on the information early regarding Giovanni Piguera. And also explicit pictures and that type of thing that were not her social media pictures, advertisements, and that type of thing.
So it was just a coincidence that then they got involved the way they did, or what?
No, it was actually my sister who had said that she knew of this group and had mentioned her to them, and they offered to work with us. And at that point, we needed all the absolute help that we can get, and we have a group of Navy SEALs offering to help us. Just took them up right off the bat. The NYPD was not doing anything, no action whatsoever. And the FBI was not yet involved. They did not get involved until February of 2018. And from what I understand, though, the FBI became involved because of Phantom Rescue uncovering records. So that was because the FBI becomes involved when it's a matter of trafficking over state lines.
So did Phantom go anywhere? Did they break down any doors in New York City or Massachusetts or other countries? Do you even know? Or, I know they put up a reward of $10,000, but anything other than that?
No, I know that they had several meetings with the NYPD to exchange information, and that they were trying to actively look for her. And from what I understand, the NYPD had not shown up for a meeting. Like one of the investigators had not shown up at some point.
Yeah.
The communications between the trafficking department and the investigators and Phantom Rescue and their leader, Tony Sparks, was not to where it should have been. They had a lot of information, were willing to help out, and were getting next to nothing, no reaction from the NYPD. Then shortly after that is when the Ishiwoni arrest happened, and everything just kind of stopped. Everything came to a dead stop. Okay. I can say that as far as Phantom Rescue goes, their portion, after uncovering the stuff at the beginning, and that is kind of their what they had done initially, and also too that it's I want to say it was in 2018. We had so many scammers. I want to put out a press release that we're chock full of psychics at this time. Like, thank you for your interest, but we're not hiring psychics anymore. Yeah. And and the other thing is private investigators who actually have no experience asking for $5,000 to start, that type of thing.
It's crazy.
Right. So When we appeared on the Dr. Phil show, we were put in contact with a group named Halo Investigations, and they worked closely with Corinna's mother and looking on the actual well-known trafficking sites of trying to identify her in pictures and other advertisements, and that Halo Investigations knew like the actual circuits that traffickers travel. There's actual they go to actual cities in order, like Vegas, Miami, that type of thing. During 2018, I want to say it was, Sabina was contacted by scammers who they were telling her that they knew where Corinna was, that Corinna was being held in a room, that she was being injected with heroin, that she was being injected with heroin and Benadryl. They were giving her the exact dosages that she was being given, like apparently. And the only problem with that was all the information that they were sending to her, you could plug it in and come up with exact matches on the internet. Like, meaning it was somebody using a medical website to say what they were dosing her with. Yeah. They wanted, I believe it was $7,500. They wanted Sabina to drive down to Georgia or North Carolina and to exchange $7,500 in person. And they led her mother to believe that they had her. They would not stop messaging her about this, and Phantom Rescue was not willing to give up the $10,000 for that exchange because of the fact that the $10,000 is only given in the cases of her safe return. Right. And had said that this was possibly a scam. Her mother didn't end up going, thank God, because we could have two missing people
easily.
Right, and but the police authorities, that type of thing, never followed up on that scam. There was, but Phantom Rescue was aware of it and it was saying that it was a scam right to begin with. But there was also there was other leads. The problem is that when leads would come in, and we would try to pass them on, that they went ignored, such as that one of the $7,500. Somebody is giving her mother a 0.01% chance that she's going to find her daughter. Who doesn't want to take that chance? But the police weren't doing anything about it. And it was another one that a lead had come in that she was in Grand Prairie, Texas, and it seemed to be a solid lead. And that never got followed up on either from the NYPD. It was just lots of things of us saying, here, did you look at this? And here, did you look at that? And the answer being no answer, just as if she does not exist.
What would you say, once in retrospect, made Corinna, understanding, of course, she is not your daughter, but she's like your daughter. You were close to her. You've obviously cared deeply about her, knew her well. What do you think it was about her that, made this possible? Anything in retrospect? And what should, being that you've experienced this, for other parents out there, mainly of daughters, what should they, what are the signs that they should be suspicious of that could make a young woman, a girl, susceptible to this?
So, in retrospect, I see 1,000 red flags that were missed by everybody, and including me. Many red flags. I now know about the trafficking world, and something that we did not know about prior, and that every parent needs to know about, is the fact that there are individuals out there who have the power to take over their kids, and I'm talking about male or female, these predators know exactly what to say. And every teenager wants their freedom. Every teenager wants their dream life. These predators know what to say to give them that. They are looking for broken homes. They are looking for families that seem... I would venture to guess that Giovanni Piguero way underestimated her family. I think that he probably assumed that she would just go flying under the radar, and probably because he met her during a very vulnerable time. Not sure that he expected the publicity or anything like that. In retrospect, I can say that you should never be letting your teenagers stay the weekends by themselves. That for me, for instance, letting her go on the fact that I knew she was smoking pot, that's like a guaranteed, drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
Not
right.
Okay. There is a catch-22, in my situation of living in Massachusetts, where it's legal and just being down to reality, that it's the equivalent of someone trying to smoke cigarettes. So that was definitely a red flag. If your kids are changing friends, if they are losing friends that were good friends and gaining new ones, if they have a sudden change in personality, I know that some of the red flags that I actually did address, but I didn't take them seriously enough, was when her social media changed from her being, just your typical fun-loving teenager to these pictures, which we now know were her pictures being taken when she was being groomed. That there is a stark difference in the photos that she was taking of herself and then the photos that appear where she's not taking photos of herself. Also, too, on her Facebook, and this is something in retrospect, was that around August, her she started posting recipes, like extravagant recipes. And she doesn't cook. So looking back now and understanding that during my final conversation with her, that's another red flag. How about that? Is that I would give anything to have realized what an emergency this was when she said she was going into a tunnel at the end of our conversation, and I knew she wasn't.
Right. Yeah, we didn't. Yeah, that final conversation where you thought somebody was in the background. What you left out of that at the time was that's how she ended the conversation, saying she was going into a tunnel, and you thought, nah, I don't think that's right.
Right. I had asked her. I had in the beginning of the conversation, she was her bubbly self, and. When I was like, I know somebody hurt you, baby girl, and I can remember it like it was yesterday, and just her reaction back, and I was like, Corinna, what are you doing? Oh, because it was September 7th, I believe, on her Facebook, that she said that she finally had her own apartment in Manhattan, and whoa, when I was on the phone with her, how are you affording an apartment in Manhattan?
Right.
And she would not answer that question, and it led into that she was going into a tunnel. Yep. And it was her voice. It changed. It changed. Now that we understand what goes on during the grooming process. And looking back at those posts appearing on her page about the recipes, there's no doubt in our mind that somebody else had her passwords. like there was somebody else on her Facebook. After she went missing on September 20th, there were several logins, like onto her Snapchat at like 3 o'clock in the morning. No messages, no posts, anything like that, just a login. We believe that there were people checking on her messages. So from knowing that she went to New York in probably the second week in August, second to third week, and was immediately assaulted, what we believe is that her dreams of going to New York came to a very fast, crash landing of reality that she was not expecting.
Okay. Do you have a Facebook page, website, anything like that set up for Corinna's disappearance? If so, why don't you tell the listeners about it right now?
Well, sure. There are several groups that are on social media, mostly Facebook. We do have a little bit of TikTok. We are looking to increase the traffic on all social media. But right now, we do have a confidential tip line that is open. What we are hoping is that if anybody is afraid that their tip is going to get lost, or that their tip is going to go unheard, or that they do not want to give a tip through law enforcement, we do have a confidential tip line. This line is also attached to Signal. If somebody is able to download Signal and use that to report a tip, those tips are not able to be subpoenaed in a court of law, and they are not able to be retrieved. So that confidential tip line is 623-703-6188. Again, that's 623-703-6188. Okay. There is a confidential email. However, again, this would not be confidential in the sense that it cannot be subpoenaed. But the confidential email is tips4 Corinna @gmail.com. That's TIPS 4 CORINNA @gmail.com. So there is a website that's under development right now that will be up soon, and that website is exposehertruth.com. Again, that's exposehertruth.com. And we do expect to have uploaded up-to-date information regarding the court filings, etc., including the text message history between her and Trayvon Martin, a.k.a. Yobani. And we are hoping that the public will have interest in this case and help us get to the bottom of what happened on the night of September 20th.
Julie, any final words before we complete this interview?
We just want to know what happened to her, and we really need some accountability. It is heartbreaking to have a family member who is being treated as if she doesn't exist. And don't let this happen. Don't let this happen to anybody else. These people are gosh, I don't even know what my last statement would be. Just, she's missed, and we are not going to let this go until we have answers, and until the people who are actually responsible for abusing her are actually held accountable. We won't stop, and we need to either get her home alive, and or we need to know exactly what happened and mourn her properly, rather than this giant question mark that easily can be solved.
Julie, thank you for being on this episode of Unfound.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And that was my September 29th, 2025 interview with Julie, aunt of Corinna Slusser. I thank her for joining me and all of you on this episode. A couple days after the interview was recorded, Julie expressed to me that she wasn't exactly happy with how she answered that question about did she have any final words before the interview was over. So she texted me something, and I told her I would read this to all of you. So this is Julie speaking. If Corinna's disappearance and subsequent investigation led to a bigger finding and more women being safe, we can somehow make peace with all of the 8 years of torment we've experienced. We cannot make peace with the indifference, injustice, or the public safety threat that is a constant dark looming cloud. We definitely cannot make peace without knowing where she is. And there ends the text that Julie sent me that she wanted me to read to all of you. Now for my summation, and this goes to the theme started at the beginning of this episode. For all of you who don't watch my Unfound Lives on Monday nights, you don't know that I have a real problem with how the topic of sex trafficking is defined, reported on, and explained in the true crime community. Frankly, it's become a cliche. Seriously, take a good look around at many disappearances that the public, the media, and too many true crime people who should know better have deemed to be sex trafficking. Then compare those to Corinna's. Really, there is no comparison. Corinna was sex trafficked. Most of those others were not. You may say, well, Ed, what's the harm? People make mistakes. A lot of people don't know what they're talking about. People are just so frustrated with these cases. Well, I'll tell you the harm. It's this. When all these disappearances that are obviously not sex trafficking are defined as such, the words sex trafficking cease to have any meaning. It's like that exchange between Elastigirl and her son Dash in The Incredibles. Everyone's special Dash. His reply, which is just another way of saying no one is. Sex trafficking is sex trafficking. Non-sex trafficking is non-sex trafficking. Every disappearance should be investigated according to what it is, not according to what people think it is, or what people want it to be, or what families hope their disappearances are, or what some advocate says just because he or she wants to bring attention to their pet cause. Other than pure luck, there's only one way cases of any type will get solved, and that is if they are properly identified and labeled. Everything else is just play acting and theater. What I'm saying is sex trafficking has become a cliche due to it being the go-to term for anyone who wants to get attention. You all know who you are, and you're harming families like Corinna's. You know, people who actually know what sex trafficking really is. Would you please stop doing this because all of you are nothing but traffic for the rest of us. If you'd like to hear and read more of my in-depth analysis into the disappearance of Corinna Slusser, please go to patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. Sign up and partake in the Unfound blog. Until then, I leave the public theorizing up to you. And that's the program. I'm Ed Dentzel, and you've been listening to Unfound.